Today's guest is Elizabeth Payce, who, after a successful 30-year career in the museum sector, Elizabeth decided to make a change to follow her dream to empower women to reconnect to their authentic, beautiful selves using her coaching and mentoring experiences. Elizabeth trained in personal performance coaching and became a neuro linguistic programming practitioner in 2011 through the Coaching Academy. She continues to evolve her knowledge and experience by working with amazing people across the world to explore ideas and collaborations. So, Elizabeth, thank you very much for being on. How are you doing today?
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. It's lovely to meet you.
Likewise as well, and I'm excited to dive into this with you, especially when we started this whole conversation off air. We're both talking about our skydiving experiences. So, you know, the reason I point that out is what I commented to you before, and what's coming up the more that we speak is like the proclivity to like walk your own talks. I'm always excited when, especially coaches, decide to do something like this, because it's at the end of the day, we got to walk our own talk. We got to do what we tell other people to do. So I'm always excited when individuals like yourself come on. So that's number one. And then number two, I'd love for you to just give us a breakdown of how does one go from museum work to becoming a coach.
Well, it was a journey of discovery. I was privileged to work with somebody within the museum sector who trained as a coach, and she offered me 6 free coaching sessions, which then led on to more and more and more. And it ultimately led to me going on to a free session with the training provider, the Coaching Academy. And then I took, as you described, the personal performance coaching and the Neuro Linguistic Programming practitioner diploma in 2011. So that was really important, because not only could I use this experience within my future work in museums, so up to 2021, I worked directly with museums, and having a coaching background has been extremely helpful, because I was doing much more around the diagnostic of the business development side in a museum context. So I was able to use the coaching skills to actually get people to come up with their solutions when they were facing problems. So I would work with individuals and with board members. So it was really like that transition of actually knowing that you've got a passion for coaching, keeping in line with that sort of fundamental profession that you've spent, as you say, 30 years in. So it's just like finding a transition in which I could say, I feel like I've done as much as I can in the museum sector, but I still got so much to explore and to give in terms of coaching, mentoring, and the neuro-linguistic programming.
Beautiful. Love it. And especially like diving right into, like, it's like I've exhausted everything in this one area. Like I've done everything that I could possibly do. And then there's a deeper calling for something more. And to then dive into that is a beautiful story, and one that is oftentimes reflected in a lot of my guests, and certainly a lot of my clients as well. So I'd love to then dive into and explore really like, how can I best support you today?
Well, I've been on a relatively short journey, in a sense that I've set up a business uh, called Payce Change, focusing on empowering women leaders predominantly to reconnect to their authentic, true, beautiful selves. And I believe everybody is beautiful and has that authenticity. But that connection for me is with women. Um, I've actually started my business journey probably back in 2011 when I qualified. I actually set up my own business. But because of various needs and focuses, I kept within the museum sector as my main stable income, and then did a bit of coaching on the side. Thought, this is not going anywhere. And then in 2021, I had the opportunity of stepping out of the paid employment world to invest in myself again, and actually rethink and refocus on a business. So various things have evolved. So thinking about where I want to go, I was able to do that from December 2022. So it is still quite, relatively speaking, a short duration in this journey, which I'm calling a lifetime journey from here on. However, I think really facing the reality of being clear, being authentic, so aligning to what I'm actually showing up to do in the coaching world, and actually feeling frustrated, stuck and blocked. So I need to really clear this so I can actually move forward myself authentically, and then I will be much better at serving my clients as I start to evolve more of the business.
Perfect. So what would you say is like your stuck point or points?
I think it's definitely confidence. And you probably heard this so often, the imposter syndrome. You sometimes you log on and you look at what other people are doing and you think, oh gosh, I'm nowhere near that. They've got lots of clients, people paying them sort of lots of money, and they've got the lifestyle, they got everything. And at the moment, I'm not earning anything. I'm doing some free work to get testimonials and recommendations, but it feels like there's a disconnect, as it were, with actually showing up and actually doing what I really want to do. So there is the passion there, but it's just how do I actually make this all connect together so I actually have a sort of a solid, stable business with clients that are clearly keen to work with me, see the value, and that value is then replicated in terms of the monetary transaction, as it were.
Got it. So just to have a clear idea, like, have you invested in learning like the business skills to get all of this? Okay, you have. Okay.
Yeah,
So do
yeah.
you feel like you know what you need to do, but I'm just not doing it, or it's not even clear like how to actually execute the business skills? Like, I guess just tell me a little bit more about that.
I've been on various programs throughout the last 10 years, but over the last 6 months, I've invested in business development and marketing. And I felt, rightly or wrongly, that if I invest in these programs, I'm going to go from doing and knowing little and sort of like zoom up the scale, and then being able to say, yes, I'm here and I'm ready and confident, and then people come flocking to me. And it's is definitely not that. So I think there's a level of learning which you can get from programs, but it is that deep mindset, the I say the limiting beliefs that I feel I've been carrying about my ability, my confidence and competence to actually run a business. I feel very confident, and I don't want to sound boastful, but I do feel confident as a coach because I get good feedback when I work with different people. But it is the elements of, okay, doing the marketing, doing things like the sort of business planning, doing the financial planning. So it's I do spend time on doing all of those, but it's taking the time away from what I really am passionate about, and feel like I'm putting energy in when I haven't got the energy or the insights to actually do better than what I can at the moment. I'm very much on the basis of accountability. So I've been on a program where I've had accountability partners, and that's been really good because it just gives you a space. But I think within that actual sphere, it's been quite challenging because we're all at the same level. I feel like I could do with somebody who is like a business mentor, accountability, somebody that can actually give insights and actually get me to really challenge sometimes, get me to rethink what I'm doing and to try different things. And I have to say, I'm prepared to get out of my comfort zone. As we said at the beginning, I've been skydiving, so that really does push you. So I'm happy to have a go. It's just like, what do I have to do? Because I'm not now clear on what I need to do to step up the business.
100%. And I think even you showing up to an experience like this, where, you know, you're going to be witnessed in this process, is a testament to that. So I just wanted to acknowledge you first and foremost for that. And then number two, so you mentioned a bunch of different things from confidence to imposter syndrome. You didn't say it outright, but it sounds like visibility is something as well that is okay. So out of those, what do you think is the most like relevant or pertinent one to dive into?
Friend has recently said to me this saying. He said, "You've got to get out of your own way." I feel like I block myself because I have, I would say, the imposter syndrome and limiting belief. So I think if I focused on that, I feel like the visibility then would naturally come forward because I would be in a stronger, clearer place.
Perfect. So being that you are a coach yourself, how do you think you would coach yourself if you were your own client?
That's an interesting question. And actually, somebody has posed that question to me in a conversation I had a couple of months ago when I was sort of talking this through. And I just think, I suppose, the question I would need to ask myself is sort of what is stopping you, or what would you need to do differently to actually show up differently? So, yes, how can I show up differently? How can I get out of the headspace of an imposter and into the space of somebody who is a confident coach, business owner, just hopefully a generally nice woman who wants to go out there and make a difference to other women across, well, the world, if I have that big enough ambition.
Beautiful. So how can you do all of those things then?
Testing, trying, and evidencing what is not true. So I struggle a bit with that because I think when you have imposter syndrome, or you show up with what you believe is low self-esteem and confidence, is that you are aware and you are then measuring yourself. So I feel like I measure myself against other successful coaches who are clearly doing really well. And it's just like, okay, will I get to a point? Is it because I'm so early on in my journey that I'm still learning and that's why I'm feeling this sort of unease? Or is it there's something else fundamental? So it's really focusing on how to actually challenge myself to lift these blocks.
Okay. So beautifully articulated and, you know, intellectually correct answer. Like there's nothing I'm like, yeah, that absolutely makes sense. That seems to be the path forward. So keeping that same space of, okay, so if you're going to be coaching yourself as your own client, what would you do to move yourself forward towards that?
I use, actually, as a coach, I use a tool called the Wheel of Life, which I don't know if you've come across. It's really important for me to get a client to look at their life holistically at the present time. So it's a way of saying, okay, where do you want to go? So you set that future goal, clearly defined, time specific, and then do the current, okay, this is where I am, how do I get there? So it's actually reconnecting. So I've got the vision, I've got the sort of ambition and where I sort of want to achieve, and I'm actually doing some planning at the moment. I've got a fabulous mentor from the museum sector who has a what he calls a 10, 5 and 3 year planning process. So you actually go to 10 years first, because that takes away all the current baggage, and you actually then define what 10 years looks like. Then you move to 5 and then you move to 3. So as you start to get close to the present day, you can actually then sort of work through what it is you need to do. So I feel like I'm going to focus on that and also revisit the wheel of life to actually say, okay, what do I need to now do? So I'm sure that when I go to the wheel of life, there will be clearly areas within that which will be sort of, when you score, will be, I will score quite low out of 10, and will drive me to think, okay, what now? What is the next step? Because that's the thing, isn't it? It's never trying to get up to the top of the mountain. It's okay, what can I realistically do to get me to the next stage of this journey? And I think perhaps I get into this mindset of, oh, I've got to do all of this now. So I think it's taking a reality check and, okay, what do I now need to do? What is realistic, say, for the next month, 2 months, 6 months, and start to get clarity in terms of planning and actually executing.
So again, beautifully articulated, great plan. So my next question is, okay, well, why haven't you done that?
It's a good question. Why haven't I? I really struggle sometimes. I think the honest answer is that I put obstacles in my way and I get that distraction. And you probably have heard this from other people, that you sort of, when you start to get this, oh, I don't know what to do, you focus on one particular thing and the thing that you can actually do. So I feel like I focus on certain elements of the business, and then really don't do anything more. And actually, I've just had an interesting conversation with a coach who said, well, who's your champion? And I've never actually thought about having a champion, but who could I actually perhaps talk to? Who could actually just sort of highlight some opportunities, give me some support, and just get me to really sort of take that step back? Because I really feel that if I'm left to my own devices, as I'm clearly am, I go down the, oh, I'll go and do a bit of LinkedIn work because I know what I'm doing with that. Whereas the focus I really need to do is actually the business, the program, the client development, and actually doing that big thing, which is actually getting clients and getting paying clients. Because I seem to be okay in terms of, oh, come and work with me and have this sort of free experience. And then it's encouraging people to translate. And actually, nobody has translated from a free into a paying client. So I think there is that block of, actually, I'm never going to do this. So what's the point? So I can do the things that I'm comfortable with, but I'm not really doing as I should be doing, which is actually getting a bit more uncomfortable and actually doing things that actually mean that, okay, I say to somebody, this is what I do, this is how much it is, and I'm not doing any more freebies. If you want to work with me, this is what it starts off as, and then get them into that mindset. But I think when there's pressures, and I have to say there are like financial pressures that I have, that it is just like, I just need to make some money. And that then I think disengages people because they see that you're desperate, as it were, to actually be earning, and that they want clearly you to work with them because they have a need. So you have to put all of that aside and focus on them. So it is getting that balance between, okay, showing up for them, giving them what they need, but also I need to have some sort of income from this process. So yes, I'm stopping myself because it's uncomfortable.
Okay, so given all of that, how frequently do you actually ask for money?
Very little when I look back, because I do daily post on LinkedIn, and it is saying like direct message me to find out more, but nobody has. When I do any sort of one-to-one work, often actually people will say, oh, I can't afford to do anything, I can't afford this. And you think, okay, I know you, as it were, so I want to get experience, but it's not really pushing me to actually go, okay, I will do this, but that's as far as this relationship can go. And I'm not making those contacts with people that I don't yet know, that might go, we may want to pay for this. Let me just explore. So I think I'm sort of in sort of the rock and a hard place. I want to be coaching, I want to get experience, but I'm not reaching new people and actually putting myself out there, or finding the ways in which I can actually engage with people who are considering investing in themselves.
Okay. So then if we broke that down into even more specific, like out of the last 10 free conversations you've had, how many did you directly ask for money?
I would have to say I probably didn't, because the conversations leading up to these sessions have been, oh, but I've got no money. So
Okay.
I just would do it anyway.
Okay. So 0 out of 10 I've actually asked for
Yeah.
money. Okay.
Yes.
So when you now rewind our conversation from this point, right? So I asked you, okay, knowing everything that you know, you're a coach yourself, how would you coach yourself through this? And you gave me this beautifully articulated plan about the wheel of life and mapping out your goals for the next 10 years and bringing back to the present and all of these like goal setting tools. Doing all of those, even if you did them, could they compensate for you having or spending at least 10 hours of your life volunteering and then not asking for the very thing that you want?
And that, I think, reflects on my perception of the value that I give. So it's a contradiction almost, because I feel I am a good coach because I get good feedback, but I'm not as confident. And I suppose I'm measuring myself up with established coaches who are asking sort of programs of thousands of pounds, for example. So it's just like, okay, how do I get to that level? So I'm I am getting in my own way, because I won't even ask the question, because I'm embarrassed almost to say this has a value, and I've invested in these programs like through from 2011 up to the present day. So there is a development and monetary value to what you get. I don't feel that it equates to what people are perceiving, and perhaps that's sort of a misconception. But I just feel, I would say I do feel embarrassed about raising, unfortunately, that money topic with people, or they do preempt me with, oh, I can't afford this.
Got it. So again, if you rewind the conversation, so essentially ask you a yes or no question, right? Like, do you think all that planning and stuff that you suggested can actually compensate for talking to 10 people and never asking for the sale? And where your brain went to was this beautifully articulated answer once again that basically danced around the no.
Yes.
So, okay. So, what lands for you from that reflection?
And I'm in avoidance. I am avoiding this.
Correct. So, why do you think you're avoiding it?
I have issues in terms of relationship with money, and I think the whole concept of my own self-worth and value.
Okay. And you're very self-aware, right? Like it's not like I'm telling you anything that you don't know. So why do you think your brain hesitates to look at those things directly?
I go back to, well, initially childhood experiences of money, and also, again, experiences going through as a child into adulthood, where people have indirectly and directly have said, oh, you're not good enough, you can't do this, or you can't do that. So if I were to listen to a couple of my secondary school teachers, I would have been working as a retail assistant for my working life, and then would not have gone to university and then had a career in museums. So there is an element of, I can do this and I can be bloody minded, but there's also the element where some of it has stuck to the detriment of actually making any positive progress.
Correct. And it's actually perfectly reflected in the results that you're getting.
Absolutely.
Right? Like the results that you're experiencing are perfectly reflected of the beliefs and the lenses through which you view the world, and specifically your position in the world. So
Absolutely.
what's landing for you there?
What would be brilliant if there was a sort of a way of getting out of this mindset? There's not clearly a switch, but if there was some steps to take to actually start to shift this mindset from saying, I'm not valued, I don't value myself, and therefore I don't expect people to pay, to actually saying, I have value, I value myself, and in terms of being able to do what I want to do and provide a service that does have a monetary value.
100%. So what I would reflect back to you is you don't actually have a revealing problem, meaning there's not really, like, again, I haven't told you anything that you don't already know about yourself. I might have, prompted you to look into, like, held up the mirror for you to look at the dirtier areas that you're like, I don't really want to go there, right? Which, as you know, it's obviously where the good stuff is. So you don't have an awareness problem around the pattern. What you really have is a healing and elimination problem. All of these aspects of myself that I'm aware of, there's an element of courage. Like, I haven't built up the courage muscle to actually face this, not while I'm hiding, but in the real world where I have to actually apply this stuff. Right. So yeah, I can work on my self-worth all I want, and I can say the affirmations, and I can break down exactly, what happened in my past that has led me to it. But it's kind of useless as far as generating real world results until you can eliminate it in the real world, like go from the dress rehearsal to the live performance, right? So before I go on, like, what lands from that reflection?
That was really powerful. And as you say, it's something that I am really aware of. And I suppose it's the frustration that I've not met anybody, or anybody, I should caveat, who has enabled me or I've allowed to actually get to a place where I actually feel I am making positive, permanent, empowering change. I've worked with different people and they've been absolutely fabulous, but it goes back to, you work with somebody, you shift something, but you're not shifting enough. And then it's like, well, if you want to continue to do this, you've got to continue to invest. And clearly, sort of, there are limited resources available. So it's just like, I feel like I could do with a permanent coach who can actually, on a regular basis, sort of weekly almost, or even more frequently, go in and say, okay, come on, let's come back to, and let's work at this, and keep pushing and pushing, because I'm not pushing myself because I don't want to. I do want to, but there's not that drive. And when I feel that I need to make change, I often will say to people, help me, because that's where I think, when you sort of hold up the mirror and say, okay, I'm going to be accountable, we can talk through this, but you've got to take actions and then you've got to report back. For me, I feel like that would be great, but I do feel like I could do with that permanence, as it were, of somebody just keep pushing and pushing me, because I'm not doing it by myself.
So again, great awareness. And one other thing that I would add to that, the work that you've done in the past, whether on the self-development side or on the well, more on the self-development side, what I'm hearing, and obviously you can correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of it has been on the awareness side of things, like breaking down why I am the way that I am and coping with some of the stresses that come with the way that I am, or shifting or reframing the way that I am. Would that be accurate?
I feel like I've most recently focused on affirmations and refocusing, and that has some benefit. At the moment, I've sort of stepped out of that arena because I was feeling a bit of a fake because I was affirming and it didn't feel real. So it's just like, what do I need to do to make my affirmations feel real? So I feel like I've got to this point where it's like, well, what do I now do? I really am stopping myself from progressing. So I feel really frustrated that I'm 5 months into a business. Perhaps it's my own expectations, but I really would have liked to be in a different place. And perhaps that place is to actually get rid of what I'm holding to then run this business, which I'm, yeah, very passionate about.
Yeah, and I think that the passion comes out, like I don't think anybody listening to this would deny the passion, because anybody who's going to go through all of this will only go through it if there's passion on the back end of it. So yeah, I think that part's 100% clear. And my invitation to you, especially for the rest of this conversation, is to really get more in tune with directness. Okay, because your brain has this really good way of, like, if I ask you a direct question, especially if it's like a yes or no thing, or it's like it has a specific answer, it gives me this elaborate, again, beautifully articulated answer that kind of dances around to infer what it is that you actually mean. Um, and the reason that I'm inviting you to just answer directly is, if there is a general fear of being direct, of which asking for money is certainly going to like play into that. um I really just want you to pay attention to that. Like, to what degree does your brain run amok with all of this wonderful information that it has, but really just dance around the actual thing that you need to be direct with? So obviously you can say no, but what's lands for you from that?
A long silence because there's stuff going on in my head, which means that things are sort of slightly shifting gear, as it were. And the directness, I feel the directness is a challenge, because I feel through my career and setting up a business, I've had this nice quote persona. And it's not that you clearly can be nice and run a business and have a career and whatever, but I feel that I'm not that of somebody who steps into that space, who is really bold, brave, and strong. And you actually use the word courageous. I say that I am, I affirm that I am, I don't feel that I am. So I'm not doing what I really believe I should be doing. And then it gets into, well, you're not doing this, so what's the value? What's your worth? Why are you showing up in this space if you can't do this? And what's the point? And look at X, Y, and Z. So I get to the point of doing the people pleasing, trying to get people to sort of work with me, and then get really frustrated that is not converting. So there is, in the coaching world, if you do the same thing, you get the same results. And I'm clearly doing the same thing and getting the same results. So if there was a magic wand, if I was the client myself, I would say, well, what is the one thing that you would do differently? And that's where I feel I could answer, but I'm not confident that I have got the answer. So whether I would say, okay, I would try this, and life is an experiment, so you have to try different things. So I could try doing this and see what happens, or I could try that, but I'm still sort of hedging. I'm sort of going, okay, I'm not sure, I'm not sure, I'm not sure, so I'm not going to do anything.
Fair. And can you be like, when does courage happen? In the presence or in the absence of fear?
In the presence of fear,
Right.
you almost need, yeah, you need to push yourself to actually go, yeah, go on, you can do it, you can do it. And
So,
clearly, once you've done something, you push your comfort zone further.
right. So you can do it. You got this. This is all good. You can make this happen. Is that courage?
Perhaps there's more. The words coming into my head is motivation,
Correct.
something.
Right. That's not actual courage. That is
Mm,
the whatever motivation, encouragement, thought work, whatever you want to call it, to actually be in courage. Courage
mm.
only exists in the doing of whatever it is that scares you. And even within this conversation, like, it was a courageous step to show up after you booked. Like, that's an example of courage, right? But this whole sentiment of, well, I should be more confident. I think I'm more couraged. It's going, like, all you have to do is look for the evidence of if that's true. Like, if you had 10 conversations where you felt the fear or the discomfort or the embarrassment or the shame, whatever, but just under the umbrella of fear, and I didn't pull the trigger and actually ask, like, that's 10 evidenced things that I actually don't have courage. Right. So going back to what I was reflecting to you before, where your brain defaults to right now is beautifully articulated understanding of the patterns, kind of like conceptually, intellectually, beautiful awareness around everything that you're doing. Why? Because none of that really requires courage. It requires a faculty that you already have built up, you already have a lot of experience in, which is just, your intellectual capacity. But what you actually lack is the courage muscle to then face directly, emotionally, all of these things, not just look through them like through glass, like the intellectual glass, and observe them, but face them emotionally, heal them, and then practice the courage in the real world to actually eliminate them. Like that's the actual, like, arc of where you need to go. So what lands for you from that?
You've said the word emotional, and I've really feel deeply that for whatever reason, as I've got older, I feel more vulnerable. I feel more exposed, and my emotional resilience wavers. I can get some days where I'm absolutely flying, and then other days where it's like something happens and I just crumble. So it's building on that understanding, and actually, what can I now do to strengthen my emotional resilience, which I will really feel then leads into growing the courage or taking the steps towards doing something in the unknown.
Correct. And to just add nuance to that, it's really the capacity that you're missing. Like, you're missing the emotional capacity, the somatic capacity to hold all of the fears, the baggage, the drama, the shame, the doubt, all of it. Obviously, you don't have to hold it all at once, but to hold it, not react mindlessly and freak out and repeat the paradigms of the past and be able to take the next action, right? Now, whether you need to do that while being supported, with like a coach or somebody that can hold the space for you to both heal that and then eliminate it in the real world, that's okay to ask for that help as well. But it's not just the understanding, right? This is a common thing that a lot of coaches or people into personal development make, is like they continue down this rabbit hole of like YouTube University, where they just keep looking for the next understanding of the thing that's going to solve them. It's not. Like, you can't outthink emotional problems, you can't outthink somatic problems. You have to experience them and build the capacity to then experience the new thing. They're two completely different skill sets. But just like you've already built your intellectual skill set, you can actually work to build the other ones. So what lands for you from that?
It may sound strange. It almost feels like I'd like to be taking time out from developing the framework of the business and actually sort of putting time to actually build this emotional resilience. I talk, when I do posts on LinkedIn, I often use the word self-kindness, but I think it's more than that. It is about an underlying and fundamental emotional foundation, which will give me that strength to go, I don't care what happens. In a sense, I need to do this. I need to try this, and I will learn. So I feel what you've just said is really spot on. Absolutely.
So I'm glad that it resonates. And the part that I just want to reflect back to you again is looking at where your brain goes towards a solution, right? Like, essentially said, okay, so if I take a break from like this business stuff and then go and like figure this out in the back end, like I build my emotional resiliency, while not being out in the world and like doing my thing, then when I come back to it, I'll be good. The reality is the exact opposite. You actually build, like, you heal it, you support it, you work through it. You can certainly do a lot of things on the back end to expand your ability to do this. But where the elimination happens is actually in the real world. No amount of your emotional resilience is ever going to compensate for being supported for the next 10 conversations, that like coaching conversations you ask for the sale every single time, regardless of the result. Like, there's nothing you can do in whatever other coaching container or emotional container. You can do ayahuasca all you want, but ultimately you have to take that and bring it into the business. And that's really the intersection of the work that I do, which is bringing the healing, bringing the elimination of these patterns into the business. And the reason I'm stressing this here isn't by any means to like judge on you or like harp on what you're doing, but just to like really illustrate how, and I've said this oftentimes on the podcast, like our primary strength becomes our first distortion. So for you, your primary strength is your intellect. Like, so I'm going to assume it's like what got you through a lot of success in your field, because you were smart, you picked up on things, you understood things. If you had to learn it, you figured it out. You could share that, you could teach it beautifully. Like, whatever aspects of your intellect were great, and you can't use that to solve emotional problems, right? Like, you can never outthink those emotional problems. So again, I know that was a bit of a tangent as well, but what's landing for you?
I need to be sort of out there, active. I suppose the question for me is how do I actually do one thing differently? And it is that level of that self-awareness, and actually just checking in with somebody and going, okay, how would you do that? Or what can I do? Can I talk this through with you? So I feel like I need a sounding board to start to let all this information filter through, because what you say is absolutely practical. It's that sort of light, as you say, that mirror that's been held up. So what am I going to do now differently to make change?
Correct. So, I mean, the simplest answer here is, you know, on the base level, the most like Neanderthal path through this is like you just do it. Like you just do the things and repeat it long enough until like you force yourself through all of these patterns. And in my experience, that there's a small minority of people that can push through and like outwork these things. The flip side, and again, this is why I do what I do, especially in my up level mind program, is, you know, work through all of these things while being supported, as you've said, to not just heal these things while being held, but to have that support in order to go out into the world and execute where the results actually count. Right. So as I always say, I don't do feel good personal development because it's not translating into the business results that you want. From my perspective, that's not real healing, right? Like if my people pleasing is improved by my understanding, but every time I want to say no, or rather I say yes every time I actually feel no in my business, then we haven't actually overcome this pattern. So that's kind of the short and the long answer to your question. So again, any questions, comments, or concerns with that?
I just feel really, if I said a mix of excitement and unease, and just really wanting to really step up and make this difference. So yeah, I need to get that sort of consistency in approach and really know how I can actually have something in terms of a business that is going to be growing in a way that I want it, and I grow as well and work in the ways that will empower the change that I want to support, and actually be authentic to myself.
Beautiful. So on that note, who or what would you be without all of these limits?
I would be, I would say, a highly successful empowerment coach for women leaders, meeting the vision that I have, which is supporting and empowering women across the world to really reconnect to their authentic selves. So in terms of every aspect of the business, in terms of the practice, the programs, the other elements that I'm focusing on, the marketing, the finance, everything would pull together and create something holistically beautiful.
So that's what you would create without these limits. But who
Mm.
would you actually be? Like, who's Elizabeth without people pleasing? Who's Elizabeth without feeling less than? Who's Elizabeth without feeling I'm not good enough? Who's Elizabeth without putting obstacles in the way of her doing?
Authentic. That's the
Okay.
word.
And what would that actually look like? Like, if you really allowed yourself to dive into that, what does that, like, if you lost the ability to people please, what's left?
I feel I would really excel in terms of growth, in terms of just getting out there, because I would be just ready just to sort of go, okay, let's do it. Let's do it. Come what may, I'm going to do this. So I would keep showing up and showing up. I'd have the confidence that I dream of. I have this the awareness and the ability to actually go, yeah, I have this business, I'm growing this business, and I'm working with you, and I'm going to work with you. And I can make choices instead of being in a position of want. I would be in a position of strength.
And if you rewind that, like, do you notice the shift in your energy between how you speak about that versus how you speak about all of your patterns and being in them?
I feel energized. I feel really lifted, and you could probably see sort of my sort of like shoulders have raised, and my tone of voice, my facial expressions have lightened. So yeah, when I lift those off, then the what I feel is the beauty within shines through.
Correct. So what you have there is a preview of who you actually are, the authentic you that actually wants to build a business you described prior, when you can successfully eliminate everything we talked about, throughout this conversation.
Mm,
So,
fabulous.
yeah. So, and what lands for you from that?
Exciting.
Good.
Sort of endless possibilities. A sort of bright, yeah, bright light coming now and forever on the horizon, because taking those perspectives of the limiting beliefs away means that I can do everything and anything that I want.
Correct. Right. That is really the next evolution of your authentic empowerment. Right. It's like everything that you teach, obviously, you've had to go through your own journey to teach it. And what's being asked of you for your own evolution is to step into your own next version of empowerment and authenticity. And as you've seen today, it's what you just experienced, but on an ongoing basis without the distortions and the baggage and the weight anchoring you down from all of the patterns we talked about at the beginning. So that's a beautiful, beautiful space to aim towards. So I commend you for showing up in that way. Does that feel complete for you, or is there still something left outstanding?
Well, I feel I've got insights now. I feel there are so much opportunity now on the horizon, literally, to step out of that place into a positive space and do literally. I feel like I'm going to just, following this conversation, just have my brain going, you can do this and this, and it's just like, okay, well, one step at a time. But yeah, I feel like I've taken one big step to get out of my own way and actually start to show up authentically. So thank you.
You're very welcome. So why don't you just close us off and let everybody know, where to find you, who's the best person to find you. Floor is yours for that.
Oh, thank you. Well, I am based in Nottingham in Britain, but I will work anywhere with anybody online. I have a program that goes through sort of development of past, future, then back to present, to set up a life plan to get you going forward. So you can find me on LinkedIn under Elizabeth Payce. I'm on Facebook and Instagram. And I've just now, literally in the last day, got my own email address. So you can find all those details on LinkedIn, and my website will be launching imminently. So that's brilliant. Thank you.
You're very welcome. So thank you for showing up in this way and allowing yourself to be witnessed. And for everybody else listening, we'll see you on the next one.